Where will I go now?
They threw her out of the house at night. No money, no food, no one. And years later, she was the one signing their paychecks. My name is Marcus. I've lived in this neighborhood long enough to watch people rise, fall, and sometimes rise again in a way that makes you sit down and go quiet for a moment. This is one of those stories. There was a girl who lived 2 streets over. Her name was Claire. And I want you to understand something before I tell you what happened to her. Claire wasn't loud. She wasn't someone who demanded attention or made scenes. She was the kind of person who could be in a room full of people and still feel invisible. Soft-spoken, steady. The type who kept her feelings folded up somewhere inside and just moved through the world without disturbing it. Most people saw that as weakness. Her brothers definitely did. Claire's parents had both passed by the time she was a teenager. No warning, no preparation, just gone. And so she was left behind in the house with her 2 older brothers, Daniel and Greg. In the beginning, it wasn't completely unbearable. But once the brothers got married, everything shifted. Their wives moved in, and with them came something quieter than arguing, something more dangerous. Whispers, little comments at dinner, looks exchanged across the room. The kind of slow, calculated coldness that doesn't leave bruises, but still leaves marks. The sisters-in-law worked on Daniel and Greg the way water works on stone, steadily, patiently, until the brothers started looking at Claire differently. Not like a sister, more like a problem. The real fear, the thing nobody said out loud but everybody understood, was inheritance. Claire was the youngest. She had a legal right to a share of what their parents left behind. And the brothers, rather than dealing with that conversation honestly, decided it was easier to just get rid of her. So they invented a reason. One afternoon, Daniel announced that money had gone missing from the house. He looked directly at Claire when he said it. No evidence, no discussion, just an accusation dropped into the air like a stone into still water. And then he told her to get out. Claire left that night. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She picked up what little she had and walked out the door while her brothers stood there watching her go. It was dark. She had no money in her pocket. She hadn't eaten, and she had nowhere to go. There's a particular kind of pain that comes from being discarded by your own family. It's not like losing a job or ending a friendship. It reaches into something deeper, some quiet part of you that believed, maybe foolishly, that family was the one thing that wouldn't do this to you. Claire walked for a long time that night. I don't know everything that went through her mind, but I know this. At some point, something inside her stopped breaking and started hardening. Not in a bitter way, in a decided way. She made herself a promise, somewhere in the middle of all that darkness. She was going to get her life back, not by screaming, not by revenge plots or dramatic confrontations, just by building something so undeniable that the world would have to see it. The next morning, Claire started moving. She found a small corner near a park where people walked and sat in the afternoons. She bought a case of bottled mineral water, whatever she could afford with the little she scraped together, and she started selling it. That was it. That was the beginning. It sounds simple, because it was. There was no dramatic moment where everything clicked. It was just her, the bottles, the sun, and the decision to show up again the next day. But she kept going. She reinvested every dollar she made. She learned how suppliers worked, how distribution worked, how to negotiate, how to scale. She moved from a cart to a small shop, from a shop to a warehouse, from a warehouse to something that required a legal team and an HR department. It took years. Nobody handed her anything. Nobody spotted her potential and offered her a shortcut. She built it herself, the slow way, the hard way, the only way that actually lasts. By the time she married a successful businessman who genuinely respected what she'd created, not just what she looked like, not just who she was connected to, Claire's company was employing thousands of people. Quiet people, it turns out, can build very loud legacies. Then the economy hit the floor. It wasn't just one sector. It was widespread. The kind of economic crisis that doesn't discriminate, that reaches into businesses both badly run and carefully managed, and shakes everything loose. Daniel and Greg's business collapsed. The investments they'd relied on dried up. The property they'd protected so fiercely, the property they'd pushed Claire out to preserve, had to be sold. Their savings vanished. Their safety net disappeared. And they ended up on the street. When you lose everything, pride becomes an expense you can no longer afford. So the brothers started looking for work. They went wherever there were job listings, wherever someone might take them on. One day, they walked into a building downtown. A large company, thousands of employees, solid reputation. They filled out their applications and waited. And then Claire walked through the lobby. She wasn't dressed to impress anyone. She didn't need to be. She carried herself the way people do when they've stopped needing the world's approval, like someone who's been through the fire and came out the other side not performing strength, just having it. Daniel and Greg froze, because the woman standing there, the owner of the building they were sitting in, the person whose signature was on the lease, whose name was on the company, was the same girl they had accused of theft and thrown into the night with nothing. But the power in the room had shifted so completely, so permanently, that no one in that building, not her brothers, not a single employee standing nearby, had any doubt about who she was and what she had become. The girl they had written off, the sister they had thrown away. She was now the only reason they had any chance at a decent job, the only person standing between them and nothing. She had become their last hope, and she hadn't needed to say a single harsh word to make them feel every bit of it. Some people get loud when life breaks them. Claire got quiet in a different way. The kind of quiet that comes after you've decided. The kind that sits still while it builds an empire. She didn't need their apology to move forward. She had already moved forward years ago. What they saw that day in that lobby wasn't revenge. It was just the life she had built, and the life they had forfeited the right to be part of. Now I want to ask you something. If you were standing in Claire's place, if the people who discarded you were now sitting in your waiting room asking for your help, what would you do? Would you forgive them and give them the job? Or would you let them sit with the weight of what they did and walk away? Drop your answer in the comments, because I genuinely want to know where you stand.